Last Thursday, I attended a service of prayer and reflection at Holy Trinity, Clapham, in my constituency, for the memory of Sarah Everard. The 3rd of March marked a year since Sarah was horrifically kidnapped, raped and murdered by a serving Metropolitan police officer. As the member for Richmond Park already highlighted, Sarah was just walking home from her friend's house near Clapham Common to Brixton Hill when she was kidnapped by the officer. As the MP for nearby Vauxhall, which includes part of Clapham Common, as the ex-councillor for Brixton Hill Ward and a lifelong Brixton resident, the streets that Sarah walked are familiar to me and many of my constituents. I know that horrific feeling of feeling insecure that so many women still feel to this day. Ms Cummins, since being elected to this House, I've now walked those streets with my key in my hand, that feeling of unsafety. And it's sad that I referenced my fantastic group of female MPs that were elected with me, but I know that equally they've faced so many threats of sexual assault, misogyny and violence directed to them, violence directed to women and girls up and down this country. And Sarah's murder was by far the only incident of misogyny in the police. In June 2020, Bieber Henry and Nicole Smallman were stabbed to death in Bryant Country Park. And the police officers responded by taking pictures and sharing them on WhatsApp. How could you even think that that was a response to do? What would make someone bring out their phone, open the app on WhatsApp, and take pictures? We've also heard of the horrific messages between officers at Charing Cross Police Station, casually joking about rape and domestic abuse. And too often we hear of misogynistic incidents and the police officers' behaviour have been described as bad apples. But when we continue to see this flagrant disregard for women, betraying women's rights, women who've been murdered, we see officers at entire police stations engaging in the most distressful and distasteful messages. We see an officer continue to be deployed despite the evidence of rampant misogyny, even to this very House, Ms Cummins. We cannot conclude anything other than a deep cultural problem of misogyny rooted in the Met Police. Yeah. And sadly, rather than stepping up to this challenge and looking at how to address and tackle this, the Met Police response to these incidents has been to deepen the problem and to confirm that the scale of the issue being faced by them is small. In response to the anger following Sarah Everard's death, including the anger felt by so many of my constituents in Vauxhall who wanted to go out and support that vigil, we saw the police take a different approach. We saw the police be so heavy-handed to those who came out to the vigil. In response to women rightly demanding safety on the street, the Met Police responded by saying that they should flag down a bus or call 999 if they're confronted by an officer they don't trust. A number of these women have confronted the police, and that's where the issue lies. Sadly, so many of my Vauxhall constituents have raised problems, including the initial lack of response from the police in my borough when they've raised issues of sexual assault and domestic abuse. And thankfully, my local borough commander and the BCU are responding to this. The London Rape Review, published in December 2021, found that 65% of rape victims dropped out of the process because they don't trust the process and they're fed up. And that's the 65% who've actually come forward to report it in the first instance. The Met Police must stop this culture of expecting potential victims to pick up the slack for the behavioural changes in response to these horrific incidents of misogyny. We continue to raise the bar for women to engage in society where safety seems to be so little, and the efforts to tackle it seems to be low down. Across London, we are served with fantastic female MPs from all political parties, including my honourable friend, the member for Hackney South and Stoke Newington, who served in this House since 1987. I hope the Minister will work with the group of female MPs across London to look at how we can address this issue in the Met Police. The arrival of the new Metropolitan Police Commissioner provides us that opportunity to see a sea change on how we combat institutional misogyny. And I hope that the Minister will work with us work with female victims, work with people leading the response to ensure that someone is appointed who's up to the job.